Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning. My name is Gulraiz. I'm a design researcher, strategist, and educator. I started off my design career here at Habib, like Anzar mentioned. But the last 5.5 years, I've spent in the underbelly of Chandigarh Road. Not literally, because we work out of a fantastic office overlooking the sea, but metaphorically. In these 5.5 years, my team and I have built products, services, and experiences that have actually contributed to a quiet but a very significant shift that happened about 6 months ago. And except for one article that I saw in Profit magazine, no one has really talked about it. Between July and September of 2023, we, all of us as individuals, moved more money through our mobile and internet banking than we drew out in cash from ATMs, branches, and the bank network. This is a significant milestone for digital financial services. And this is not accidental, and this was not a blip either. This is a result of years of investment and hard work that's gone into building what I'm here to talk about, which is digital financial services. And I'm here at UX Pakistan to talk about it because it's a behavioral and ultimately cultural shift in how we as Pakistanis experience money and value. Because money's always been abstract, right? It's arbitrary value assigned to physical, tangible objects, metals, paper, plastic. But this is the first time that a lot of us are experiencing this arbitrary value assigned to non-tangible objects, which is pixels on the screen. As designers and developers, we are the ones shaping this new paradigm, and I'm here to share 5 learnings that I've gathered in the last 5.5 years designing these services in Pakistan at the Design Lab at UBL. There's a reason why I'm emphasizing Pakistan. I've probably said it like 4 times already, because over a decade of practice, I've come to believe that while principles and frameworks of design are universal, the manifestation of good design, design that connects with us emotionally, design that moves us, design that makes us change our behavior, is always particular and contextual. Of course, digital banking exists globally and for decades, and has for decades, right? We know the features of the best global banking apps in the world, every capability they have. But the Design Lab at UBL was not set up for us to replicate those experiences here. We've spent these last 5 years truly understanding our context, the customers, the technology, the regulation, the capabilities, the talent, the kind of talent pool that we have, and the business, right? Because we want to solve problems that lie at the heart of this very, very elusive holy trinity of desirability, viability, and feasibility, right? Because desirability is always cultural, and viability and feasibility are both temporal and contextual. So why did QR payments that did really well in China and have done reasonably well in India never took off in Pakistan? MasterCard and Visa have thrown billions of rupees on it, but as soon as the campaigns stop, people shift back. What about tap and pay? Tapping your phone, not your card, tapping your phone to make payment. UBL launched it back in 2001, January, right? And we've realized that back then, neither the consumers nor the market was ready. It's been 3 years since, and 2 other banks have brought that technology in, and all merchant terminals in Pakistan, because of a mandate from Visa and MasterCard, are enabled for accepting those payments. But the needle hasn't shifted. What works in one context and can work really well will not almost always translate to another context. And our job as designers is to understand that particular context and why that doesn't happen. Which I guess brings me to my second argument, which is that banking apps, or generally apps that host the pixels that represent your hard-earned money, are fundamentally different from all other kind of apps. Metrics that drive adoption or success of other apps, such as ease of use, engagement, speed, even delight, don't fly when it comes to banking apps, particularly, as I've learned in my context, in Pakistan. People want to keep their money where it's safe, and safety in our culture is manifested by walls and friction. Where the walls are too low, and for example, the onboarding experience is too simple, users are wary of parking their money. This is not a hypothesis. This comes from looking at evidence of the average deposit size and ticket size of industry apps all over the country. If it's too simple, people are not going to keep their money in it. You scroll through your social media apps mindlessly, right? And there's a lot of noise that comes through it. But you want to focus when you're conducting a financial transaction. That's why we've opted for a decluttered interface with one input per screen. And I know a lot of designers, argue against that for us, on social media. This design choice isn't whimsical, right? It's not because we think it looks nice, it looks Apple-like. It comes from our learning that every day, thousands of first-time new users are coming onto that interface, and they need hand-holding, right? And even the experienced ones, and we know this, because the average ticket size of transaction on mobile, despite much larger adoption, is still below the average transaction size on laptops and internet banking. Right? There's a journey that we have to cover to build that trust on this device. And the way we do it is, of course, through our interface. So on our mobile app, we want them to focus on completing their transactions without distraction, even if it will take a few seconds longer. Because your average user will use your banking app 3 or 4 times a month. And in each of those times, 3 to 4 minutes. So shaving off a few seconds in that experience will not change their life. But if you were to send money to someone else by mistake or pay someone else's mobile bill, that will change your life. When we removed one screen from our recurring bill payment experience to make it faster, because our power users complained there are too many screens, some of our testers, and we got not first-time users, we got new people who weren't familiar with, we brought them to the lab to test, and they complained that this was too fast. They didn't get that friction to be able to process what was happening. So we've therefore come to conclude that less is more and slow is good for now. As the user base becomes more comfortable with the device and the interface, we will evolve it to meet their needs. Right now is not the time. So yes, digital banking is growing rapidly and the needle is moving, but we've only begun to scratch the surface. Of our roughly 120 million adult population, we have about 85 million bank accounts. This was as of June 2023 by State Bank, and 27 million registered users for internet and mobile banking combined. Both of these numbers are not unique, right? But even if I were to treat them as such, that this is unique, that's less than a quarter of our adult population using digital banking. The reality is probably far below that. Sorry, that's my alarm. The truth is, and I'll show you with hard numbers, that we're still a largely informal, undocumented, and a cash-driven economy. In the last 10 years, our money supply, the amount of money in circulation, grew about 2.5x. So from 9 trillion to 32 trillion rupees. That's the amount of money that's flushing around, right? And the cash in circulation, the cash that does not touch the banking system, grew 3x. So from 2 trillion rupees to about 8.5, 9 trillion this year. The cash that does touch the financial system is immense. The numbers are mind-boggling. So in financial year 22-23, over 104 trillion rupees in cash was either deposited or withdrawn from banks in 1 year. Hardly surprising, therefore, that in the last 10 years, banks have added 40% more branches and 60% more ATMs throughout the country. How else will you handle all this cash? So yes, if you ask me, the distant future is digital and we're all preparing for it. But the near-term future is paper, brick and mortar, and human. Transforming this economy into a digital one will take a path that is long, uncharted, and fairly challenging. And I say this because the challenges with financial inclusion aren't necessarily banking challenges. They are what we call wicked problems. These are structural issues that are hard to resolve that plague our society. For instance, an entity, a bank in a highly regulated sector, under this piercing gaze of watchdogs like FATF, cannot open an unlimited bank account for you unless you provide documentary evidence of source of income. Let's take the example of women. Of about 60 million adult women that we have in the country, barely 3 to 4 million are in formal employment. What do you do with the others? Entire sectors of our economy are completely undocumented. Education, healthcare, real estate, retailers, the regular shop down the street. How do we bring those people who are not documented into formal financial net? The government even struggles to document them for tax purposes. But since our last brush with near default last year, things seem to be moving in the right direction though. There is renewed focus on documenting the economy and broadening the tax net. There is a clampdown on what were former safe havens for undocumented cash. It's much harder to get foreign currency in cash right now, to flip plot files in real estate, and pay steep withholding tax on cars. So you can see the impact. Car sales have tanked. Speculative property bubble has started showing signs of distress. It's about to burst. And at the same time, the regulator has created room for limited mandate accounts for specific use cases where all you would need would be a CNIC. So you do not need a proof of income to show that you're part of formal employment, right? This is for first-time account holders, for freelancers, for remittance receivers. Transfers via RAST are free, and the same is now being rolled out for merchant payments, right? Like all wicked problems, I'm not suggesting that any one or any of these measures will solve these problems, but at least we're headed in the right direction. So in a system as rapidly evolving as this one, aim for progress over perfection. No one solution will be your silver bullet to solve any of these challenges. Ideas are cheap and plentiful, but their real worth lies in steady, patient, and iterative execution. I remember it was March of 2020, and I was in a room in our glass tower on Chandigarh Road with about 12 other people. The world outside was at a total standstill, and Karachi was too. COVID had happened, and the only movement you saw were these kites that were flying outside on Chandigarh Road. And State Bank had mandated all banks to start onboarding non-resident Pakistanis entirely digitally, to open accounts for them digitally. This was a regulatory breakthrough. This had never happened in Pakistan. So we all worked day and night through the pandemic. There was no work from home, cluttered in that room, hammering this experience out. And I remember we launched the first version, I think about 2 months later. And to put it mildly, it was far from perfect. We ended up in that first iteration having the customer give the same information 3 times. Right? It's been 4 years. We've done over 30 iterations, expanded to new segments, including local customers. Hundreds of thousands of customers have joined in through that experience. Billions of rupees in deposit have been mobilized through it. And by now, I know every piece of regulation about onboarding, every field in the core banking system. Hashim is smiling there. Every competitor's journey, every global best-in-class onboarding experience, everything. But even now, we're struggling and trying to crack the balance between an experience that is simple, but one that people will trust and value, and one that can scale digitally to make a dent in this vast universe. All this is to say is that there's never been a better time, a more exciting time to be a designer in Pakistan. If you're passionate about solving problems and you're committed to solving the ones that are meaningful to us as Pakistanis, meet me or my team. They're all sitting here outside. Financial services is one of the few industries right now that are based out of Pakistan, that's headquartered here. And research happens where the headquarters are. Most other industries are global companies that have franchises or they have offices here. So this is a place for you to join if you really want to push the needle on how to design better experiences. Thank you.